My name is Sage Salacup, and I will be doing my project on Pablo Picasso. Pablo Picasso was born on October 25, 1881, to Maria Picasso and Jose Ruiz Velasco, a drawing professor. He was destined to be an artist because his mom claimed his first word was to ask for a pencil. At the early age of 10, Picasso began to grow a passion for art and became his father's pupil in A Coruña, Spain. From there, Picasso's art career took off, and when his family moved to Barcelona in 1895, he attended an art academy. However, their move to Barcelona was due to the tragedy of his sister's death in 1895. During his time in school, Picasso realized he did not like formal instruction, so he started skipping class to spend time in Madrid's Prado, so he could get more inspiration for his sketches. Picasso was also frustrated that his schooling only covered classical subjects and techniques and did not want to expand on any other types of work. In 1899, he moved back to Barcelona and fell in love with anarchists and radicals he met at a cafe called El Quatre Gats. Here is where Picasso broke away from the classical technique in which he was trained in, and was the start of an endless experimentation of techniques. The influence that realism had on Picasso enabled him to create his own modern take on it and ultimately influenced him to move to Paris with his friend Max Jacob. There they lived the true life of a starving artist because they were living in poverty. Picasso also seemed to be quite the ladies' man because he had countless girlfriends and was married twice. He first married a ballerina by the name of Olga Koklova in 1918 and had one son with her, but the pair split up after 9 years together. While married to Koklova, Picasso had a mistress by the name of Marie Thérèse Walter, and with her he had a daughter. In 1947, he fell in love with another woman by the name of Franciose Gillot, and with her he had 2 children. However, they parted ways in 1953. Finally, in 1961, at an old age of 79, he finally got married for the second time to Jacqueline Roque. Picasso was alive during both World Wars and experienced the effect of both wars had on the world and people. At the time of World War I, Picasso was living in France, so he did not have to join the French army because he was a Spanish citizen, so he stayed in France to continue working. This was a sad time for Picasso because most of his friends were off fighting for the country, so his emotion played a part in his artwork during that period. In 1930, fascism began to grow in Europe, so to play a role in the political side against fascism, Picasso began to include private symbols in his art with meaning. One of the art pieces he made during this time was for the Popular Front, a coalition of socialists and communists, in a celebration of the French Revolution. For them, he created an altered version of an earlier painting on the theme of the Minotaur, which was used as the curtain for Romain Rolland's play Les 14 Juliet. In 1936, the Spanish Civil War broke out, and the Republican government anointed Picasso as the director of the Prado Museum. During this time, he created a Cubist comic strip called The Dream and Lie of Franco, illustrating the general as a rebelling gnome. Picasso sold the comic strip along with a poem to benefit the Spanish Republic. During the same time Picasso was working, Expressionism was on the rise, and artists such as Ernest Ludwig Kirchner and Wassily Kandinsky utilized this technique in creating their masterpieces. Expressionism is the technique where feelings and emotions influence the artwork rather than objective depiction. Another movement in art going around the same time as Picasso's work was abstract sculpture. Constantine Brancusi led the movement of this form of sculpting with one of his most renowned works being Bird in Space, which uses inert mass in a way that makes it look elegant and uplifting. In an abstract sculpture of a bird, It is an abstract sculpture of a bird with implied motion to symbolize it flying. Living in Paris, he and his friend Georges Braque constructed the technique known as Cubism. Cubism is a style that emphasizes pictorial composition over personal expression. Single geometric shapes were utilized in order to depict an image. One of Picasso's earlier Cubist paintings was Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, which portrays the body of women to symbolize the beauty of them. Taking it a step further, Picasso and Braque expanded upon Cubism with the addition of color, textured and patterned surfaces, and the use of cutout shapes. This resulted to what is known as synthetic cubism, where artists would use common objects like newspaper, wallpaper, and other similar things to create an entire new piece of art. Picasso's bowl with a violin, fruit, and wine glass uses real Paris newspaper to construct an image that takes things that would have been usually used or seen as background and made it equally as important as other shapes. Picasso also used cubism to create a sculpture called Guitar. He created this using sheets of metal and altering them so they form the simple geometric shape to accurately depict cubism. One of Picasso's main elements was lines because he was one of the founders of Cubism, which utilizes geometric shapes. Picasso also used a lot of color in order to attract viewers and accurately represent his paintings or message behind them. Picasso also seemed to create more abstract work, rather than representational. Abstract art allows its viewers to have multiple meanings to an art piece and is more open-ended rather than being just one straight meaning. I believe Picasso's function of art is art as self-expression, because in pieces like La Vie, which is an allegorical painting that represents the sadness and depression of Picasso when his good friend Casa Gemas committed suicide. Throughout this period in his life, it was known as the Blue Period, from 1901 to 1904. Majority of his paintings were very gloomy and dark due to his inner emotion. On the contrary, from 1904 to 1906, Picasso's work was known as the Rose Period, and he finally overcame his depression. His art during this time frame proved he was out of his depression because he started creating more bright pieces, such as seated female nude. Picasso usually receives criticism that falls under the contextual theory. People like to compare his style to those before him, especially since he co-founded the new technique of Cubism. Since Cubism came after classical Renaissance art, critics like to compare his work to the work of the classical era, when in reality they cannot be compared because they are two extremely different types of art pieces. In 2005, the New York Times came out with an article called When Cubism Fractured Art's Delicate World. In the article, the author writes, Cubism turned the classical Poussin nude into a column of open razors. It transformed the Ignace portrait, that last stand of ancient regime realism, into a stack of clattering planes and empty space. I do not agree with this critic because Picasso's new art form altered the way people viewed art, and I think it made art better than ruining it, like this person was implying. That is all, and thank you so much for watching my video.